everyone. I'm Suzanne Basala, President and CEO of the U.S.-Japan Council, and I'm delighted to welcome you to our Summer Sustainability Dialogue as part of our Climate and Sustainability Initiative. Today, we'll be looking at the important issue of increasing the availability of affordable clean energy in the context of U.S.-Japan Climate Partnership. Now, before we get going, I'd like to point out that our program is available in both English and Japanese. Our speakers will present in both languages, so please choose the correct language setting on the globe icon to hear the interpretation if needed. Instructions are on the screen. I also encourage you to use the chat. Tell us who you are, share your perspective. We use the conversation in chat to help us develop future program ideas. Later in the program, we'll invite you to send questions for our panel. Please use your Q&A tab for that, as the moderator will use that, not chat, for soliciting your questions. I'm thrilled to start off our program, which brings together so many diverse voices from the US and Japan, from government and business, and from both energy providers and customers. I'll talk a bit later about how this program fits into USJC's sustainability agenda. But first, a word about the Council. The US-Japan Council is an educational nonprofit founded by Japanese Americans and active throughout the United States and Japan, cultivating and connecting leaders to strengthen this precious US-Japan relationship. Our members represent diverse professions, sectors, generations, and perspectives. We share a commitment to people ties to build a better future for our communities, our nations, and the world that depends on a strong US-Japan partnership. None of this would be possible without our members and our sponsors. Today, we especially recognize the founding partner of our Climate and Sustainability Initiative, the founding strategic partner, Amazon, who provides not only generous financial support, but has been a thought partner. I'd also like to thank our other platinum sponsors, American Airlines, the Aratani Foundation, Central Pacific Bank, Deloitte, Fabit, and MUFG. Title sponsors include Google, Hitachi, Mr. Yosuke Honjo, Island Insurance, Ito En, Mitsui & Company, NEC, Orix, Terasaki Nichibei Foundation, Toshizo Watanabe Foundation, and the Toyota Research Institute. And also, we're so pleased to welcome our most recent title sponsor, and that is Shell Energy Japan. So thank you so much. We're also supported by several companies and individuals, and you saw this list just now in the waiting room, and I'd like to scroll through it again here because our sponsors truly deserve recognition. We're fortunate to have the support of so many terrific companies and people, and are humbled by what this says about the importance so many people place and organizations place on people-to-people connections, on the alliance, investing in the next generation, and partnering to reach our climate ambitions. So thank you for your support of our mission. Today, we also want to thank and welcome the Japanese Climate Leaders Partnership, JCLP, for supporting today's event. Now, to set the scene for our dialogue, we're honored to welcome Aaron Forsberg, Minister Counselor for Economic and Scientific Affairs at the US Embassy. Dr. Forsberg brings academic, private sector, and diplomatic experience to his role in advancing the US-Japan Climate Partnership, and extensive knowledge about Japan. I served with Aaron at the embassy over a decade ago, and I have seen his commitment to this relationship and to Japan's economic growth. So Aaron, thank you so much for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
And thank you, Suzanne, for that gracious introduction and for the invitation today to discuss the vital topic of clean energy. I head the economic section at US Embassy Tokyo, and what I hope to do in a couple of minutes here is to outline briefly the cooperation between the United States and Japan to accelerate the deployment of clean energy technologies. To start, I think we need to understand, and as we've seen thus far this year, how Russia's invasion of Ukraine demonstrates unmistakably that energy security and national security are indispensable. Accelerating the development of clean energy both decreases our reliance on Russia, and it also decreases our reliance or our emissions of greenhouse gases. Today's discussion is thus very timely. I want to emphasize that the United States is committed to working with Japan to achieve these goals, together as two nations, together across the Indo-Pacific region, at all levels, public and private, national and local. It is through concerted action that we will make more rapid progress. Now, in the near term, we recognize the significant role of US liquefied natural gas in alleviating global supply constraints caused by Russia's invasion of Ukraine. But while increasing LNG volumes, the United States puts a priority on minimizing the global greenhouse gas emissions from continued use of fossil fuels. Toward this end, the United States, Japan, and the European Union are leveraging the global methane pledge to reduce methane emissions in the oil and gas sectors. To achieve net zero emissions going forward, and that is a goal to which both the United States, Japan have pledged, we require steadfast commitment to driving clean energy innovation. As President Biden said when he signed the Inflation Reduction Act earlier this month, the current US administration is taking the most expansive action ever to rise to the twin challenge of tackling the climate crisis and strengthening our energy security. Specifically, the Inflation Reduction Act promotes electric vehicle deployment, battery development, the build out of electricity transmission infrastructure that will bring the US electrical grid into the 21st century. We see opportunities for Japan to make similar investments at home in terms of upgrading its electrical grid. In the international context, this new law demonstrates to nations reluctant to make such changes that the United States has the will and the ability to combat the climate crisis by developing sources of clean energy. Prime Minister Kishida is similarly demonstrating leadership to address these twin challenges. We welcome the Prime Minister's prioritization of green transformation and the announcement that Japan will both accelerate the restarts of nuclear reactors idled for about a decade and plans for construction of next-generation nuclear plants. Bringing 17 reactors online by next summer, as the Prime Minister has targeted, could have the same effect as supplying up to 10 million tons of LNG per year on the global market. As the Prime Minister has made clear, increasing the share of nuclear power in Japan's energy mix will contribute to the worldwide reduction of dependence on Russian energy. It will also reduce Japan's carbon footprint. Our two nations are also enhancing scientific and commercial cooperation on innovation and on innovative technologies. Together with US and Japanese firms, our two governments are working to advance small modular nuclear reactors, as well as clean hydrogen and ammonia projects. Recently, JBIC, JGC Holdings, and IHI invested nearly $200 million in the US company NuScale's small modular reactor projects. The US Department of Energy and Japan's Ministry of Economy, Trade, and Industry are collaborating across a wide array of clean energy research, and I believe my counterpart will speak to that in more detail. Together, we are working to accelerate the deployment of offshore wind installations to advance the US goal of deploying 30 gigawatts and Japan's goal of deploying 10 gigawatts of offshore wind by 2030. US-Japan collaboration also strengthens energy security and accelerates the transition to decarbonized and lower methane economies across the region in third countries of the Indo-Pacific. Toward this end, we are working closely together with Japan under the Japan-US Clean Energy Partnership, or JUSEP, to advance the deployment of renewable energy and decarbonization technologies in Indonesia and other countries across the region. The Japan-US Mekong Power Partnership, or JUMP as we call it, supports the Mekong region's energy security while encouraging the use of renewable power. For example, we are working on a battery storage pilot in Vietnam and electrical vehicle projects in Thailand and the Lao PDR. Recognizing the importance of local collaboration, Japan cities and US cities are working together under the Global Sub-Zero the Global Subnational Zero Carbon Promotion Initiative. I could go on, but in closing, as you could see, our climate and our clean energy partnership is broad and deep. With innovative ideas and even broader public support, it can grow stronger. I hope that today's discussion is fruitful and that this conference contributes to the momentum behind the solutions on which our future depends. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Aaron. And when you talk about broad and deep, that is clear in your remarks when you talk about projects in Mekong as well as GSEP, a lot of really fantastic initiatives. And the conversation around nuclear is getting very interesting. So thank you for sharing your perspective on that. 1 year ago, USJC had the honor to host a dialogue on the US-Japan climate partnership with Special Presidential Envoy for Climate John Kerry and then Minister for Environment Koizumi Shinjiro. As they were headed to Glasgow for COP26, the two emphasized for us urgency in setting climate ambitions, cooperating with China, and shifting to clean and renewable energy sources. They encouraged USJC to hold more cross-sector dialogues to advance mutual understanding and find new solutions. Inspired by their call to action and with the generous support of Amazon, USJC launched the Climate and Sustainability Initiative. In November, we hosted BlackRock CEO Larry Fink, Hitachi CEO Higashihara Toshiaki to broaden the conversation. These two iconic business leaders spoke about the business imperative around ESG and climate investment. Earlier this year, we partnered on a series of events around both countries' quests to achieve a carbon-free power sector, bringing together the science, policy, and business models towards solutions. Meanwhile, we began a series of in-depth conversations with key leaders in both governments and business communities about where specifically the USJC could assist in taking the US-Japan climate partnership to the next level. We met with dozens of experts listening to their challenges and expectations. And through this exploration, we developed a picture that informs today's agenda. First, without a doubt, climate action and energy security are seen as an alliance imperative. This was the case before Russia attacked Ukraine, but the war highlighted the need to prioritize energy security and decarbonization, both for the short and long term. We heard about many specific decarbonization commitments. Leaders from different companies and organizations know what they're supposed to do, and they sincerely want to achieve those goals. But it's not clear to everyone whose job it is to reach those goals, just how they will get there. It is clear, though, that figuring out how will largely fall to industry, subnational and regional actors, and Aaron touched on that, and coalitions. These are the folks who turn climate ambitions into realistic action, and they must overcome the mismatch that may occur between aspirational policies and business realities. That's why today you'll hear from a governor, a utility leader, an industry coalition leader, and corporate executives, in addition to government champions. We also heard consistently that few success stories exist, even fewer tangible examples of bilateral collaboration leading to advances in renewable technologies, market adjustments, or policy changes. People are hungry to learn from each other. We hope today we'll share some successes. Within the scope of our study, we found the two most urgent issues for the private sector to be addressing Japan's shortfall in low-cost renewable energy and accelerating the transition to renewables in the United States. The term Japan passing even came up in this context. Whether we're talking about the manufacturing sector, services sector, everybody really depends on clean energy. And without clean energy sources, those sectors of the Japanese economy are not going to be attractive to foreign investment. And Japan could miss out on substantial investment and global business development opportunities. So this is not just about addressing the climate crisis, it's also about broader economic growth opportunities. That's why we're focusing on this theme in today's session, and I expect our panel will help us diagnose the problem and start to offer solutions. So with that, let me bring Ms. Yukiko Sato, AWS Head of Japan Business Development, into the conversation. Amazon has such an outsized influence on sustainability, and I've been impressed by their strategy of building a network of partnerships and alliances, including its leadership role through the Climate Pledge. So we've invited Ms. Sato to share with us how Amazon views its Climate Pledge and why companies feel it's so important to increase the affordability of available renewable options. Ms. Sato, thank you for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me this morning. I would like to introduce the climate pledge and our commitment to net zero carbon. Next slide, please. I'm in Amazon Web Service Japan, and called AWS is the world's most comprehensive and broadly adapted cloud platform, offering over 200 fully featured services from data centers globally. Millions of customers, including the fastest growing startups, largest enterprise, and the leading government agency, are using AWS to lower cost, become more agile, and innovate faster. Next slide, please. AWS is an Amazon company. One of the initiatives of Amazon Sustainability Transformation was in September 2019, when Amazon announced the climate pledge with global optimism. This was a commitment to be net zero carbon 10 years earlier than Paris Agreement, which has set 2050 as the global net zero carbon goal. No one company or organization can do this on its own, and everyone must do their part. Business does not operate in a vacuum. To drive collective cross-sector action on the climate crisis, Amazon co-founded the Climate Pledge based on the convictions that global business are responsible, accountable, and are able to act on the climate crisis. Our public statement, we committed net zero carbon by 2040 and powering operations with 100 renewable energy. We originally committed to reach by 2030, but now we are on a path to meet that target by 2025. And the third one is the investment, $2 billion equity fund, so we can help the world find solutions to difficult to decarbonize problems. Next slide, please. While climate change presents us many challenges, the opportunities might be just as great. We have the opportunity to create a better future and take a leadership position, on the climate change. The company that have signed the climate pledge agreed that three things. One is a regular measurement and reporting to greenhouse gas emissions. Second one is to implement decarbonization strategies consistent with the Paris Agreement through an essential business change and innovation, including an efficiency improvements, renewable energy, raw material reduction, and other carbon emissions reduction strategies. Last one is to add essential, permanent, quantifiable, socially beneficial offsets to carbon, neutralizing and remaining carbon emissions, and achieve virtually zero annual carbon emissions by 2040. You may wonder what's the benefit to participate in the climate pledge. First, you can expect a collaboration among the signatories that is very powerful. And the second one is we observe that signal. Investors are increasingly decarbonizing their portfolios. So committing to net zero offers confidence to investors that your company is a secure bet, abreast of the science and the consequence policy and economic change ahead. Third one is for innovation. And lastly, we can expect an acceleration through climate pledge and our community. Next slide, please. Amazon was the first company to sign this pledge, and now over 300 companies. Actually, I checked our website this morning, and I saw it says on 320 companies worldwide have signed. You can see many the signatories across multiple industries worldwide. There are few signatories in Japan, and I hope more companies join the TCP, the climate pledge. Next slide, please. So these are logo for the various services and products that Amazon offered to our customers globally. Amazon is engaging in a wide variety of business. For instance, Amazon alone offered over 200 cloud services. So our business very complex. In this environment, achieving the net zero carbon goal is a big challenge, but Amazon has pledged to the climate pledge and is aiming to achieve net zero carbon 10 years earlier than the Paris Agreement. And we believe that if Amazon can do, any company can do it. We look forward to working with all companies to achieving the net zero carbon. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Yukiko. I mean, every time I hear about Amazon's activities, I'm super impressed by the scale of the ambition and your commitment. But just hearing you say that you're 10 years ahead of Paris for the goal, and then even after you created the pledge a few years ago, you're ahead of target for 100% renewable is very impressive. So thank you for sharing. And I hope there are other partners that will continue to work with you. Now, let's turn to our panel, which will be moderated by Dr. Aya Kameda, the General Manager of Shell Energy Japan. I mentioned them earlier. She leads Shell's power trading and clean energy solutions in Japan. Dr. Kameda has experience working in the Americas, Southeast Asia, and Japan, and brings a wealth of experience and vision to her work. Now, Aya has actually been a USJC Council leader for many years, and her current passion is to bring women from Asia and the US together for leadership and sustainability. It's not the topic today, but it's just worth mentioning because it's such an important mission. I admire her very greatly. I'm proud to turn the webinar over to her very capable hands. Aya?
Thank you so much, Suzanne, and thank you so much for US Japan Council and Amazon for this opportunity to moderate the very distinguished panel discussion. And the topic is on the path to increase available, accessible, and affordable renewable energy. And we have three speakers today, Mr. Yusuke Matsuo, Mr. Scott Su, and Mr. and Governor Masao Uchibori. I would like to first introduce our Governor Uchibori, who has been the governor of Fukushima since 2014, prior to which he served as a vice governor from 2006. Governor Uchibori has been taking the challenges head on and has been a leader in revitalization of Fukushima, as well as regional development that will take Fukushima into the future, such as expansion of renewable energy and building a model for a hydrogen society. We have a recorded video message from Governor Uchibori today. I would like to ask that we play that video.
Hello, everyone. I am Uchibori Masao, the governor of Fukushima Prefecture. It's an honor and privilege to speak to you today. I would also like to thank the US-Japan Council for promoting exchanges between Fukushima and the US through the Tomodachi initiative. I attended the roundtable held in Tokyo the following year and exchanged views with Irene Hirano Inoue, the first president of USJC. Unfortunately, as she passed away 2 years ago in April, I would like to use this opportunity to express my respect and gratitude again on this occasion for her great contributions. The title for my presentation is Efforts of Fukushima Prefecture to expand the adoption of renewable energy and its vision to achieve the goal. The topics covered are revitalization after the Great East Japan earthquake and nuclear disaster, expansion of renewable energy adoption, and hydrogen energy. First, the location of Fukushima. Fukushima Prefecture is located 80 minutes away by bullet train from Tokyo. Fukushima Prefecture is blessed with magnificent nature, and it has a long, rich history and traditional culture. Fukushima is also a treasure chest of delicious delicacies. 11 years and 5 months have passed since the Great East Japan earthquake and the nuclear disaster, which devastated our beautiful and peaceful homeland of Fukushima. During this time, Fukushima has been steadily progressing toward revitalization. Thanks to the warm support we have received from people within US, Japan, and around the world. However, we are facing mounting challenges such as continued evacuation of over 23,000 people from the prefecture, long-term decommissioning of the nuclear reactors, dealing with harmful rumors, and more. Amid this situation, Fukushima Prefecture has set the basic concepts for reconstruction in the vision for revitalization in Fukushima Prefecture. One of the basic concepts is nuclear power-free society. Following this principle, the concept of realizing a pioneering region in renewable energy has been positioned as one of the main measures in the Fukushima Prefecture Comprehensive Plan. For these concepts to take shape, the prefecture has set a target of having 100% or more of energy demand amount in the prefecture to be produced from renewable energy by around 2040 under the Fukushima Renewable Energy Promotion Vision. The set adoption, mostly PV, increased steadily after the disaster. However, the lack of grid capacity was a bottleneck in expanding the adoption further. To solve this issue, the prefectural government began developing shared power transmission lines connecting renewable energy plants since 2018. Presently, 53 kilometers of the planned 80-kilometer wide grid has been completed. Joined by 19 PV and wind power companies, the network will connect about 600 megawatts of generation. The project is expected to be completed about fiscal year 2024. Thanks to these efforts, the rate of renewable energy adoption increased past the interim targets of 40% of the energy demand in Fukushima Prefecture, covering 43.4% by fiscal year 2020. Please note that this number is the share of renewable energy in total primary energy supply, including oil, gas, and other forms of energy. When compared with electricity consumption in Fukushima Prefecture, it has already reached over 83.6%. There are 4 pillars in the revised vision of 2021. The first 2 pillars are expansion of renewable energy adoption and development of industrial clusters. Third is the development of a sustainable energy-based society for maintaining and utilizing renewable energy into the future. And the last pillar is the realization of a hydrogen-based society using hydrogen, which is expected to be the next generation of energy. Now, I will walk you through our efforts toward a hydrogen-based society. Hydrogen can be produced from a variety of resources, and it does not emit carbon dioxide when used. Also, hydrogen can be produced from surplus renewable energy and be stored, and it will help stabilize power grids. Fukushima Hydrogen Energy Research Fields, or FH2R for short, which is one of the world's largest hydrogen demonstration bases, was opened in Namie Town in March 2020. This is a national project to produce hydrogen from PV and carry out verification of transportation and storage methods. Hydrogen produced at FH2R was used to power the Olympic cold run and the torch for the Tokyo 2020 Games. It was also used at the Olympic Village and is currently being used for a pure hydrogen fuel cell system at Fukushima Prefecture. Last June, Fukushima Prefecture announced a joint initiative with Toyota Motor Corporation to develop new future communities utilizing hydrogen. Supermarkets and convenience stores in Fukushima Prefecture will introduce fuel cell trucks to verify efficient filling and delivery of hydrogen. The project is expected to start at 2023. Furthermore, energy is one of the essential focuses of the International Education and Research Institute to be established as the world's leading core base of creative reconstruction. Fukushima Prefecture will continue to work closely with the Institute to realize a hydrogen-based society. Finally, I would like to share with you an image of the future community utilizing renewable energy and hydrogen incorporated in our revised vision. We believe that hydrogen plays a crucial role in achieving expanded adoption and efficient use of renewable energy, as well as realizing carbon neutrality. In order to create a model of a hydrogen society ahead of all others in the country, Fukushima Prefecture will be proactively engaged in spreading fuel cell vehicles and hydrogen filling stations, showing our achievements in visible forms. Fukushima Prefecture is taking on various challenges to reconstruct and revitalize the prefecture after the Great East Japan earthquake and nuclear disaster. It is also striving to realize a safe, secure, and sustainable society free from nuclear power. Fukushima Prefecture will continue to make steady progress one step at a time, with utmost gratitude to the support given to us from those who are here today, as well as from everyone around the world. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Governor Chibori. I think we could all see his passion and commitment into safe and secure and sustainable society. I would like to now next introduce Mr. Scott Su, who is also extremely passionate about sustainable society. Scott is President and CEO of Hawaiian Electric Industries, HEI, which owns a family of companies that provide the energy and financial services to empower much of the economic and community activity of Hawaii. HEI's electric utility, Hawaiian Electric, supplies power to 95% of Hawaii's population. Scott joined Hawaiian Electric in 1993 and held numerous leadership positions, including in the areas of environmental management and renewable energy development. Scott, over to you.
Thank you, Aya. And I just want to say aloha to everybody on this webinar, and mahalo. Thank you very much to the U.S.-Japan Council for sponsoring this and also inviting me to share. So, I know the title of my presentation is about HEI's experience in terms of our transition to affordable clean energy. But I'm actually really here representing many parties in Hawaii, because as we work through the issues, the technical issues and policy issues One thing I would want to keep stressing through my remarks is that you have to align so many different parts of this puzzle in order to get anything done. And here in Hawaii, that was certainly our experience working with many stakeholders in government, in the public sector, and in our community. So I'm really here representing many people here in Hawaii. So by introduction, Hawaiian Electric Industries, or HEI, consists of two primary companies: Hawaiian Electric, which serves 95% of the population of our state, and American Savings Bank, which is the third largest bank in Hawaii. We also have a small company called Pacific Current, which invests in sustainable infrastructure projects, such as in renewable energy, electric vehicle charging, and sustainable wastewater systems. So my focus today will be on Hawaiian Electric, where I had the chance to be directly involved in the evolution of our energy system and our company to one that I think is very keenly focused on serving Hawaii with clean energy and, above all, helping our community to thrive. In the 1990s, Hawaiian Electric was a very traditional electric company. We operated conventional power plants fired on oil and diesel. And in Hawaii, we had a very small amount of renewable energy in the form of geothermal, wind, and waste to energy. Renewable energy technology was in its early stages back then. And frankly, it was cheaper and more predictable to burn oil to meet most of Hawaii's energy needs. In the early 2000s, though, the interest in renewable energy started to grow among Hawaii's policymakers, and Hawaii passed its first Renewable Portfolio Standard, or RPS, law. Hawaii also passed a law supporting rooftop solar photovoltaic systems. So now at Hawaiian Electric, at the time, we had concerns about technology and cost. And so while we did support these new RPS and rooftop solar laws, I would say our support was at a very modest level to allow the engineers and the technology to further develop until we were sure that we could integrate more aggressively renewable energy into our system. In 2008, though, we agreed with the state of Hawaii to become much more aggressive, and we signed what we call the Clean Energy Agreement with the state of Hawaii. From that point forward, we've been working very hard to transition off of oil to renewable energy. On this slide, you can see the progress that we've made over the last decade. Hawaii, meanwhile, has since advanced the RPS law so that now we are required to get to 100% RPS by the year 2045. As you can see on this slide, as of the end of 2021, we achieved 38% RPS, almost hitting our 2030 RPS target. Here you can see some information about how many homes in Hawaii have rooftop solar. So about 1 in 3 homes have rooftop solar systems that are owned by the customers of Hawaiian Electric. You also see a number about how quickly Hawaii is adopting electric vehicles. And that's something that we feel very strongly about, which is that we're looking for technology solutions and customer solutions that can check as many boxes as possible. In the case of electric vehicles, obviously, it cuts back on fossil fuel gasoline that is used. And also by electric vehicle charging and smart charging, the utility, Hawaiian Electric, we are better able to manage our electric grid and spread the cost of electricity over more kilowatt hours. Now, what these numbers do not show is the tremendous learning and challenges that we've had to deal with along the way. And very importantly, it's critical that we have partnerships and that we align technology, community, and policy issues. So in the early days, we focused on renewable technology, but we quickly learned that there are very real social issues that touch our communities in different ways. And so public and regulatory policy also needed to be modernized along with our energy system technology. The 2008 Hawaii Clean Energy Agreement recognized this, but even at that, we had to continue to make adjustments along the way as social and community issues arose. In Hawaii, we have a very limited amount of land, and unfortunately, the availability of various renewable energy resources is not equal depending on which island you're focused on. So as we look to modernize policy and our regulatory structure, probably the best example is what is called performance-based regulation, or PBR, which we just adopted here in Hawaii, and which changes the way that utility business model works to better align policy, community, and technology. So I'm going to leave it at that for now so that we can dive deeper in the question and answer period. I want to leave you with this very last image. And what this shows is our Hawaiian Electric employees and their families volunteering to clean a taro field, or in Hawaiian, what we call a lo'ikalo. So this really illustrates the connection that the people of Hawaii have with their land, the importance of partnership, and of course, our commitment to care for Hawaii so that our children can continue to thrive here in the future. In Hawaii, climate change is very real. And in Hawaii, we're seeing firsthand the early impacts in unpredictable weather and sea level rise. Last year, because we understood that the world doesn't necessarily speak in terms of an RPS, we adopted a goal where Hawaiian Electric will reduce our carbon emissions 70% by 2030 compared to 2005 emissions and get to net zero at least by 2045. And later this week, on September 1, Hawaii will end its use of coal for electricity generation as our contract with the very last coal plant in Hawaii expires. So we will not go back. With that, I look forward to the discussion on this panel. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Scott, and we'll definitely dig deeper into some of the points that you've made in your presentation. Next speaker I'd like to introduce is Mr. Yusuke Matsuo, who is the Director of the Secretariat of Japan Climate Leaders Partnership, or JCLP, and he leads the work at IGES, Institute of Global Environmental Strategies. He has been instrumental in leading the business group with more than 190 companies to jointly drive corporate ambition for the net zero economy. He's also a recipient of the Kaya Award from the Japan Society of Energy and Resources in 2008 and awards from the Ministry of Environment in Japan in 2007 and 2010 on his climate and energy policy proposals. Matsuo-san, よろしくお願いします。
日本語で失礼いたします。今ご紹介いただきました松尾祐介と申します。簡単に自己紹介いたしますけれども、今スライドに映っておりますが、日本気候リーダーズパートナーシップ、こちらは、企業がですね、気候変動にきちんと向き合って、さらにはそれの解決のために、ビジネスの力で、貢献していこうと。さらにはその先にビジネスと企業としての成長、発展というものを見出していこうと。そういう方向性で集まっていただいた企業のネットワークでございます。ロゴがたくさん並んでおりますけれども、特徴としましてはですね、様々な業種の企業が集まっております。で、いろんな業種がございますけれども、業種の多様性以外にもですね、もちろん日本企業が主体ではあるんですけれども、アメリカの企業の皆様にもですね、多数ご参加いただいております。今日ですね、スポンサーされております Amazon さんもですね、ご一緒に活動させていただいております。で、この JCLP の特色としてはですね、やはり脱炭素化を目指すには、企業の取り組みというのはもちろん必要ですが、政策の転換も必要であろうと。政策の転換を行うためには、産業界がしっかりと考えて声を発しないといけないと。脱炭素に向かって産業界がその方向を支持しているんだということをきちんと、政策担当者に伝える必要があろうというような趣旨で、活動をしております。次のスライドお願いいたします。次のスライド。いきますですかね。はい。簡単にJCLP のですね、リーダーの方々をご紹介しますけれども、お一人お一人ご紹介を避けますけれども、多様な業種のですね、CEO クラスの方々、4名 の方にですね、コーチェア、共同代表として、活躍いただいております。さらには、最近、企業からの政策提言というものにも力を入れておりまして、今年になりますけれども、前衆議院議長のですね、大森前衆議院議長にですね、特別顧問になっていただきまして、この特別顧問とともに、前向きな企業の声を政府に届けていこうという活動を加速しております。次、お願いいたします。はい、今日のテーマ、クリーンエネルギー、特にですね、企業の方が安価な再生可能エネルギーを求めているというテーマだったと思いますけれども、よくですね、日本国内では、日本は再エネに不利な土地柄であるというようなことが言われております。山がちであってですね、遠浅の海が少ないというようなことも言われるんですけれども、実はですね、しっかりときちんとデータを見ていきますと、日本は再エネのポテンシャルが非常に大きいということが分かります。こちら、上のグラフはですね、IEA、ご案内かと思いますが、国際エネルギー機関の、データになりますけれども、それによりますと、日本はですね、風力発電、特に洋上風力発電のポテンシャルが非常に高いと。遠浅なのになんで洋上風力がポテンシャルが高いんだとお思いになるかもしれませんが、今、国際的にもですね、浮体式といいまして、海の上に浮かべる深い深度が深いですね、海でも洋上風力ができるというような技術がもう実用化されております。そのあたりのポテンシャルを見込むとですね、日本の電力の、なんと9倍にわたるですね、技術的なポテンシャルがあるというようなことが、IEA の方からデータとして示されております。下の図はですね、風力以外の太陽光なども含んだものですけれども、こちらは日本の環境省が出しているデータですけれども、一定の経済性がある、再生可能エネルギーのポテンシャル。先ほどIEA のポテンシャルで申し上げたのは技術的なポテンシャルなんですけれども、すでにある程度経済性がありますよというような切り口で再生可能エネルギーの、ポテンシャルを推計したのが下のグラフになります。それによりますと、現時点でのですね、日本の電力消費量の2倍以上ですね、ポテンシャルが日本にもあるというようなことが言われております。このようにですね、まずは日本は本当に再エネに不利なのかと、再エネポテンシャルが少ないのかというところをきちんとデータを見ていきますと、実は日本は再エネのポテンシャルが非常に高くって、課題は何かと言われると、そのポテンシャルをどうやってですね、実現していくか。ということがですね、非常に重要で、このことは冒頭のご挨拶にもありましたけれども、日本の国内の経済の活性化、今日本は約20兆円ほど毎年化石燃料を輸入しておりますけれども、そういったものをですね、福島の例にありました通り、国内に流していくというようなこと、国内で産業を起こしていく。さらにはですね、ウクライナ危機にもありましたけれども、エネルギーの自給率、エネルギー安全保障対応としての自給率の向上にも資していくというような形で、この再生可能エネルギーをいかに活用できるかということがですね、日本の国益においての一つの鍵になっていると申し上げられるかと思っております。次のスライドお願いいたします。はい、JCLP ではですね、先ほど申し上げました日本の再生可能エネルギーの、ポテンシャルを、発揮するためにですね、様々な取り組みを行っております。こちらはですね、RE100 と呼ばれる、需要化、電力の需要化が、期限を切って再生可能エネルギーに転換しますということを宣言するイニシアチブでございます。ちょっと背景をご紹介しますと、日本で再生可能エネルギーがなかなか発展しなかった原因の一つがですね、いろんな方々が一歩引いていると。すいません、これ通訳難しいかもしれませんけども、という状況がございました。例えば、需要家企業からするとですね、再生可能エネルギーに転換したいんだけども、なかなか安価で利便性の高い再エネメニューがないというような状況が、10年前ぐらいにありました。で、電力の供給側の方に話を聞きますとですね、お客さんがいないから我々は再生可能エネルギーに投資しませんと。再生可能エネルギーのニーズが見えないので、私たちはなかなか投資もできませんというようなことをおっしゃっておりました。さらにはですね、政府の方にお話を聞きますと、供給側からも需要側からもなかなか声が聞こえてきませんと すでに日本はきちんとした電力システムを持っているので、転換するというよりは今までのやり方でやっていきますと。そういうですね、日本語で言うと3すくみのような状況にございました。ただ、気候危機がですね、取り沙汰されるようになりまして、国際的にもカーボンニュートラル、企業がカーボンニュートラルをやらないといけないという状況になってきてですね、なんとかその膠着状態をですね、打破しようと。それを事業家の立場からやっていこうというのがこのイニシアチブでございます。で、実際企業がですね、その再エネに 100% 転換しますというふうに宣言をどんどんですね、JCLP 企業が中心になってやっていったんですけれども、非常にユニークなことが起こりました。それまでですね、電力会社に再生可能エネルギーメニューを出してくださいと聞いてもですね、いや、再生可能エネルギーは安いで、非常に高いですし、なかなか我々メニューがないんですよね、とずっと言われてたんですが、いざ、需要家がですね、再生可能エネルギーに切り替えるということを決めて、それを宣言した途端ですね、電力会社の方々がたくさん再エネメニューを開発して持ってこられたと。まさにマーケットシグナルを送ると。マーケットシグナルを送ることで、市場のダイナミズムを生んで、再生可能エネルギーの、好循環を生んでいこうというような取り組みを、しております。次のスライドお願いいたします。先ほどマーケットシグナルの話をしましたが、それと同時に、ポリシーエンゲージメントですね。政府に対しても、企業の立場から再生可能エネルギーの増加、加速をですね、ずっと訴えてきているというのが JCLP の活動でございます。昨年、日本ではですね、エネルギー基本計画およびエネルギーミックスが新しいものが策定されましたけれども、そのタイミングにおいても、JCLP の方からですね、まずはやっぱり再生可能エネルギーの高い目標を掲げてほしいと。やはりマーケットがないとですね、いろんなことが動かないのと一緒で、ターゲットがないとですね、いろんな実務的なものが回り始めないということで、2030年に再生可能エネルギー比率 30% というですね、野心的な目標を掲げてくださいというようなことをずっと提言、しておりました。上の写真はですね、その今年の、春になりますけれども、そのような流れでですね、岸田政権になってからもですね、再生可能エネルギーの拡大および気候変動対応、CO2 のですね、大幅かつ迅速な削減、さらにはそのための具体策というようなものをですね、提言しておるところでございます。最近、日本でもだいぶ状況が変わってまいりまして、特にこれまではですね、エネルギーの政策というものは、大半が専門家およびエネルギーの供給側の方々がですね、知見を持っていらっしゃいますので、そういう方々の議論で決まってきたんですが、最近はこういった事業家の声もですね、政策の、検討の際に取り入れていこうということで、ここ数年で様々なですね、具体的な、制度に関する、進展、変化というものを見られております。まだまだですね、日本で再エネ調達をやろうと思うとですね、ハードルは多いんですけれども、このように、JCLP では事業家が中心となって、また、ですね、気候危機のタイミングに合うような、そういったスピード感で様々な活動をしていくと。さらには、その活動の成果としてですね、日本でも変革が生まれてきているということを日々実感しながら、活動を進めておるところでございます。で、他にもですね、いろいろあると思いますけれども、そちらはまた、質疑応答の時にお尋ねいただければと思いますし、最後に、プレゼンテーションの最後になりますけれども、やはり日本が変化する、その際のですね、一つの重要なファクターが、海外との連携です。やはり日本国内だけで議論しているよりも、様々な国際的な、動向というものをきちんと把握して、それに基づいて意思決定をするということがですね、変化の際には必要なんだろうと思っております。そういう意味で、こちらの、日米カウンシルの方々との議論、および皆様の活動がですね、非常に鍵になるのではなかろうかというふうに思っております。では、一旦ここで、終了させていただきます。ありがとうございました。
Thank you so much, Matsuo-san, and thank you so much, Scott, also for your presentations. I'd like to now move towards the discussion part of the panel. First, Scott, let me put you on the spot. So Scott, Governor Uchibori talked about his journey and ambitious target for Fukushima. Now, I noticed that you and Hawaii also have a very ambitious target. And you have actually achieved almost 40% penetration of renewables. How did technology come into play? And what were the challenges you faced? How is Hawaii dealing with the inherent instability of solar power?
Thank you, Aya, for that question. So, I recognize that, the many on this webinar may not completely understand how we operate our power systems if you are not from a utility or technology institution. So just very, very simply, the challenge of operating a power grid means that you have to generally have a perfect balance between how much energy is being used and how much energy is being produced. Now, in the early days before the advancements in battery energy storage technology, that generally meant that all of the utility companies and utility systems had to have technology that would help you keep this balance at all times. So that really set the stage for what the engineering and technology specialists had to figure out as we started ramping up our aggressive use of intermittent variable renewable energy, such as solar and wind. Let's talk about solar power, to your question. With solar energy in particular, it is very prone to impacts coming from cloud cover. And of course, obviously, when the sun is not shining, you are not getting energy from that solar system. As we looked at integrating solar energy into Hawaii's systems, what we recognized was that we needed to work very closely with the solar manufacturers and the United States government national laboratories to better be able to control the output of solar panels so that we could control and prevent very large fluctuations in the energy output coming from the solar panels. Now, the other challenge that we also had to face here in Hawaii, as I mentioned, our policy directed us to really encourage rooftop solar systems. So it was not only large solar farms, but rooftop solar within our neighborhoods and taking that level of rooftop solar to levels that nobody had ever experienced before. The way that we work through those issues, again, working with our solar manufacturers and our solar industry, and frankly, pushing our own selves in terms of what we were comfortable with as engineers in understanding how we could operate our energy system safely and reliably, even as we allowed more solar energy to come onto the system. It was not easy by any means. And I would say in the early years, we actually did run into some challenges, and we actually had to slow down some of the solar until we could find the technical solutions. My last comment here, you can get it done provided that you do have a good balance of different types of renewable energy resources. So we do not rely completely only on solar or wind or biomass or geothermal or anything. What we're always striving to achieve is having a good mixture of these types of energy resources so that we can maintain the balance. And then, of course, as technology develops in energy storage, we're better able to capitalize on those technical advancements.
Thank you so much, Scott. Let me ask some more questions regarding Hawaii. What were some real examples where you faced difficulty when you were trying to increase these customer solars?
I mentioned our rooftop solar installations within neighborhoods. And here's a situation where in the past, our neighborhoods were meant to be the users of electricity. So electricity would flow from the power plants down into the neighborhoods, down into the homes and businesses. When you had, what we were seeing was a significant amount of energy now being produced within the neighborhoods themselves. And if you can imagine during a very sunny weekend day, there may not be, a weekday, there may not be a lot of electricity used within the homes themselves. So what we saw was power being produced and flowing backwards, if you can imagine that, onto the grid in amounts that we had not ever anticipated. So one example of a technology that we are working with now is what is called a grid forming inverter. And an inverter is a control system for that solar PV system. And a grid forming inverter actually responds to the conditions that it sees on the electric system in a real-time fashion to help you control the output of that solar panel. So that's just one example as we look ahead towards what types of new technologies are going to be very critical to keep getting developed and deployed so that we can, again, maintain that proper balance on the system and provide the reliable service to customers.
Thank you. Very interesting about the grid forming inverter. I think that's already a problem in some of the areas in Japan where they have a lot of solar power being generated. When you were, increasing the renewables in Hawaii, I think you mentioned earlier about aligning the stakeholders, that there are many pieces of the puzzle. What were the oppositions that you faced when you were trying to, achieve your increase in renewable power supply?
As I mentioned, Hawaii is a very limited available land. And in the early days, we did not see too much opposition from, for example, within our communities. We had some of the early wind farms developed and some of the early solar farms developed without any real issues. However, once the number of wind farms and the number of large solar farms started to get to a higher level in certain communities, that's when we started to see concerns raised about, for example, the aesthetic impacts of wind turbines, or that the wind turbines were too large and built too close to homes. We also had similar concerns raised with respect to some large solar farms, visual impacts, construction impacts, dust and noise, and so on. So we recognize, and by the way, this is still being worked on. It's not like we've solved the problem here in Hawaii. But what we've recognized over time, working with our many stakeholders, working with our regulators, is that we have to be sensitive to the communities where the infrastructure and these renewable resources are being developed. In certain cases, our project developers can make adjustments, for example, to the footprint, the layouts of the solar farm, so that it can avoid some of the impacts that the communities are facing. In others, quite frankly, with, like, for example, a wind farm, it's difficult to manage all of the concerns. But again, to the extent that our processes, our regulatory processes, and our utility practices involve stakeholder input and engagement as early as possible in the process, that's actually served us well. And we're going to have to continue to improve those processes.
Thank you, Scott. I think it's really interesting. You've mentioned in your presentation and in our Q&A, 3 elements: technology, community, and policy. And perhaps on the policy side, we'll first go to Matsuo-san and come back to you to probe a bit more about policy. So now turning to Matsuo-san, as part of Shell's mission to become trusted energy transition partner for Japan, we bring technology developed in the US to Japan to enable increasing production and use of renewable energy. But Japan is usually known for its advanced technology. So why do you think Japan is relying on technology imported from overseas to overcome these issues in renewables?
はい、ありがとうございます。この問題をきちんと話すにはですね、率直にお話ししないといけないなと思っております。JCLP ではですね、やはり正しい意思決定をするためには、適切な情報と、あと忖度ないですね、率直な議論が重要だというカルチャーでやっておりますので、今日私もそのようなやり方でさせていただきたいと思いますけれども、まず日本がですね、いろんな技術が高いんではなかろうかと、それは私自身もそう思っております。で、今ご質問にあったですね、その再エネの不安定性の技術のみならず、 実は日本ではですね、再生可能エネルギーに関連する技術であったり、もしくはデマンドレスポンスをはじめとする、いわゆる次世代型のですね、省エネ技術みたいなものについても、実は様々なところで、外資系の力を活用しないとなかなか進められないというような状況に陥っているというふうに私自身は感じております。で、なんでこんなふうになっているのか。技術は日本は本当に高いものを持ってるんじゃないかと私自身も思うんですけれども、そういう疑問を持って、JCLP の関連する方々、非常に高い技術を持っていらっしゃる方々と議論をしたことがあるんですけれども、その時に分かったのがですね、日本は技術はあります。ただ、マーケットがないので、例えば再生可能エネルギーであるとか、次世代型の省エネエネルギーを本格的に、実践するための投資、もしくは研究開発をしてこなかったと。これはもう有名な話ですけれども、昔日本は、風車も作ってたんですね。風力発電の風車も作ってたんですが、今はもうすべての会社が撤退してしまって、それを、日本でやるために逆に日本の電力会社が海外の電力会社と組んで、やらざるを得ないというようなことが多々起こっております。先般日本でも大規模な入札、洋上風力の入札がありましたけれども、その時に入札を勝ち取った会社はですね、少し前に、海外の企業を買収して、そこの技術を活用したと。で、他の入札者を見てもですね、すべての入札者が、海外の企業と組んで、この事業を検討しているというような状況がわかります。今申し上げたのが実態だと思うんですけれども、やはりマーケットがなかったので、日本の技術を生かすような形でこの分野に投資をしてこなかった、研究開発をしてこなかったということが、あるのではないかと。それはまさに今、目の前の課題となっている、再生可能エネルギーの不安定性の、解決という問題も同じかと思っております。日本の変動性な再エネはですね、まだ 10% です。日本の再エネ比率はまだ、20% 程度ですけど、そのうちの半分が大規模水力です。変動性の再エネは 10% です。でそれが今、スコットさんがお話になったように、4割、5割を目指すときに大きな壁があるというふうに言われてますけれども、そのあたりのソリューションを世界中が今、大きなお金、多大な頭脳を投入して、そこのソリューションを今考えていると思うんですけれども、日本ではまだそこまで至っていないと。そういうような状況が続いてしまうと、この脱炭素という成長マーケットで、日本企業がこれまでのようなですね、いいポジションを取れなくなるというようなことも、懸念があるんではないかと思っております。
ありがとうございます。市場がないために技術の開発や投資がされていなかったということですが、なぜ市場がないのでしょうか。何が課題だと思われますか。
そうですね。これも率直な議論を申し上げますけれども、やはりエネルギーのマーケットというものは、どうしても政策制度というものが大きく関連してくると思います。マーケットがあるかないかというものはですね、やはり制度が導入される見通しがあるかどうかと、予見可能性があるかどうかというようなことで、言い換えられることもできるかと思いますけれども、例えば現在、先ほどスコットさんのお話でもですね、再エネの不安定性を、住宅であるとか EV であるとか、そのようなものと組み合わせて、さらには多様な再エネと組み合わせてバランスを取るというお話がございました。ただ、日本において現時点、例えば、EV が大幅に近々に普及してですね、それを家庭と結びつけて、様々な再エネを組み合わせて、それで対処していこうというマーケットが、日本の事業者に見えているかというと、まだ見えてないと思うんですね。なぜなら、やはり日本の現在の政策がそっちの方にあまり向かってないというようなことがあろうかと思います。でさらにですね、なぜ政策が、そっちの方に向いてないかというところが、一番根源的な問題だと思うんですけれども、これは私自身はですね、やはりガバナンス、決め方の問題があると思います。日本でエネルギー政策をですね、議論されている方のメンツを見ていくとですね、やはり既存のエネルギー業界の専門家であったり、既存のエネルギー事業者さんなんですね。そういう方々はやはり自分たちのビジネス、これまでの投資がですね、阻害されるというようなことを、やはり忌避したいと、避けたいという、本質的なインセンティブが働いてしまいます。ご本人の善意とは別のところでですね、やはりそういった構造があって、どうしても現在の制度を維持しようという方向の議論がされているというようなガバナンスの問題が日本にはあるのではなかろうかと。 ですので、そういった問題を解決するためにもですね、いろんな需要家、再エネが重要だと思っている需要家が声を上げる必要がありますし、海外の情報をもっともっと取り入れてですね、そういった、きちんとした情報をもとに、適切な意思決定をする、そういったことができるガバナンス、政府の、政策検討過程というものが必要かと思っております。
ありがとうございます。ガバナンス、もしくはデマンド、カスタマーの声をマーケットシグナルとして出すというお話でございましたが、これからでは行政や、私ども民間の企業などがどう変わるべきであるとお考えでしょうか。
そうですね。やはり根源的な問題は、決め方の問題、ガバナンスの問題でありますけれども、やはり私のプレゼンテーションでも申し上げましたが、三すくみ状態というのがあるかと思います。政策決定者の方々、政治家の方々、行政の方々もですね、やっぱり脱炭素に向けてきちんとやっていきたいという思いを持っていらっしゃる方は多数いらっしゃいます。ただやはり、行政も政治も、いろんな社会の皆さんの声を聞いて意思決定をするということが求められますので、やはり需要側、特に企業でですね、脱炭素を目指すという方向性を持っていらっしゃる、企業の皆様はですね、ぜひ、そういった我々は再エネがもっともっと発展してほしいんだと。でそれを成長の糧につなげたいというような、そういった声を、行政の方々、政治の方々に届けていただくと。で、まさに今日のスコットさんのお話は素晴らしかったと思うんですけれども、このようなお話をぜひ日本の関係者の方々にもっとお伝えいただきたいなと。で、そのために、ベンチカウンシルの皆様にですね、引き続きこのような活動を、強化していっていただければなと。我々、JCLP もですね、このような方向でおりますので、ぜひ連携ができれば、何か新しい、ブレイクスルーが生まれるんじゃなかろうかと思っております。
ありがとうございます。All right, Scott, I hope you're ready. So Matsuo-san is requesting you talk to many stakeholders in Japan to spread all the good work that you have done. Now, coming back to the three pillars, technology, community, and then policy. So let's kind of go on the policy realm. I think you've mentioned PBR, performance-based regulations. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Certainly. So performance-based regulation, let me back up. In the United States, the traditional form of utility regulation is one where a utility company, an electric company, is allowed to establish how much it charges per kilowatt hour of electricity to its customers by working with our regulators. In Hawaii, it's our Hawaii Public Utilities Commission. And as a company, we are allowed to earn a return on the investment in our energy system. So in our power plants, in our poles, our substations, and equipment. Okay, so that's the traditional setup. The traditional regulatory framework, by the way, also allows the electric company to bring in revenues as customers pay their bills. And if you happen to have a year where you sold a lot more electricity than you had planned for when you set the rates, then that year the utility company would actually earn a tremendous amount of additional revenue and income. So two things happen in Hawaii to adjust the policy to allow us to focus more on renewable energy. One of which was back in 2008, in that clean energy agreement, there was a mutual agreement that we would go ahead and implement what we call revenue decoupling. So in a very simple way to think about that, the utility no longer earns additional profit if it sells more electricity. Instead, we are essentially assured a certain amount of revenues to cover the costs of running our system. But we, again, do not experience a windfall profit if we sell more electricity. On the other side, though, we do not experience any downside if a customer chooses to generate their own electricity, for example, through solar panels. So that was an important policy adjustment that the Hawaii regulators made over a decade ago. And it was purposely done so that the utility would not be harmed by encouraging customers to generate their rooftop electricity. it would not be harmed by the utilities signing contracts with solar farm developers or wind farm developers. Okay, so that was one example, decoupling. Fast forward to today, where in Hawaii, we just implemented what's called performance-based regulation, or PBR. And what PBR does is it seeks to even more closely align the performance and decision-making of the utility company with the interests of our customers. And the way that it seeks to do that is it takes you remember how I mentioned how we earn a return on the investment in our equipment? Well, under PBR, there's a certain amount that is provided. We call it an annual revenue adjustment or allowance. And we essentially work within this pre-established amount of money, amount of revenues. And we use that amount of revenues to perform our maintenance of our system, to invest in equipment, and so on and so forth. But it really provides more stability in terms of what we have to work with in terms of our revenues. It also takes away the incentive, frankly, for the utility to overinvest, right? We do not want to just put in a new piece of equipment because we can earn a profit on that. The other thing that PBR does is it provides what are called performance incentive mechanisms, or PIMs, for certain things. So for example, if we can accelerate more renewable energy coming onto our system ahead of schedule, we can earn a bonus payment for that. If we can provide outstanding customer service for our in terms of how we respond to calls and requests, we can earn a bonus payment on that. On the other hand, there are certain penalties that are part of the system. So if we fail to deliver good, reliable electricity, we can be penalized for that. But if you think about this as a totality, under PBR, we say it provides the utility company more predictability. It provides us more opportunity, if we operate as a well-run, efficient company. And then, of course, it does provide for us to really move faster, if we can, along the pathway towards renewables, electric vehicles, and customer reliability. So those are just some examples.
Fantastic examples, Scott. Very interesting, both positive and negative reinforcement to help the uptake of renewables in Hawaii. Since we're running out of time, I'd like to move on to Mateo-san to see if you think this performance-based regulation can potentially work in Japan, and if so, why or why not?
非常に難しい質問ですね。今の制度が日本に導入できればいいなと、私は心から思います。そういった適切なインセンティブですね、脱炭素とか、もしくは再生可能エネルギーによって、いわゆる化石燃料に支払っているお金を抑止するというような、そういうメリットが、ハワイの、ケースでもあるんではなかろうかなと思うんですけれども、そういった方向性で、先ほど私が申し上げました通り、適切なインセンティブ、政策が導入することが一番大事だと思っております。ただ、なかなかですね、日本でそういう方向にインセンティブがいってないというのは、これも事実だと思っておりまして、例えば今は日本はですね、再生可能エネルギーに行くのか、それとも、化石燃料の脱炭素化、これこそ水素、アンモニアあたりはそうなんですけれども、そういう方向に行くのかということが、まだ非常に一般の事業者の方から見て不透明ではなかろうかなと思っておりますので、ハワイのようなですね、やはりきちんとしたインセンティブで、どんどん好循環が回っていくというようなところが、私は望ましいと思ってますけれども、さまざまな議論が日本ではございますので、これから我々自身が頑張ってですね、その議論を前向きな形に活性化していかないといけないんじゃないかなというふうに思いました。
ありがとうございます。私どもぜひその議論に交えていただきたいなと思います。All right, so final question from me, Scott. From your perspective, what can U.S.-Japan climate partnership bring to the table to benefit Japan and Hawaii, as well as others globally and internationally?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of your question. I wasn't sure if that was directed to me.
Yes, it's for you, Scott. So this is a final question from me. How can US-Japan climate partnership benefit ourselves, so Japan, Hawaii, and everybody globally?
I think Matsuo-san said it correctly earlier when he said, we need to establish more regular forums to be able to share information and experiences. I would be the first one to say that there is no one size fits all solution. And, it's hard enough for us at Hawaiian Electric just trying to figure out the system here in Hawaii. Much less I can only imagine if Matsuo-san and all the various Japanese companies are trying to figure out nationally what can be implemented in Japan. But it does, to the earlier point made, it does start with very clear policy alignment. And that has to be really nailed down in the beginning and upfront. And even at that, policies are never perfect the first time out the door. You have to always be willing and understanding that you will have to continue to refine your policies and allow some flexibility to meet local needs. So I think that's one of the takeaways that we certainly experienced here in Hawaii. But I would above all say that the forums such as this one that the US-Japan Council has pulled together are the perfect example of how we do this information exchange.
Thank you so much, Scott. Suzanne, I just want to do a process check to see, are you ready to move on to perhaps a reaction to the panel?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you, Aya. Thank you, Scott and Matsuo-san, for that dialogue. And I feel like there's a panel to be developed out of almost every exchange that you had along the way. So very rich. Thank you. And we appreciate Governor Uchibori-san as well for sharing his views. Matsuo-san said unlocking renewable energy potential is key for Japan's national interest. And that really, I think, stuck with me. And I would say it's in the alliance interest, and it's really in the global interest as well. So very important conversation. And thank you, Aya, for wonderful job keeping the conversation enlightening and interesting. So now it is my deep honor to introduce our last speaker this morning, Mr. Kobayashi Izuru, who is the Deputy Commissioner for International Affairs for the Agency of National Resources and Energy of METI. And his career brings him from a lot of assignments that give him, well positions him for this topic. He also joins us on short notice, so great appreciation. His colleague, Mr. Minami Ryo, was called away late last night to join the minister for an event this morning. So we appreciate his flexibility in joining us. So I will turn it over to Commissioner Kobayashi.
Well, thank you very much for the kind introduction. And yes, thank you. Thank you for putting the slide on the screen. Well, first of all, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to speak at this US-Japan climate partnership, increasing the availability of affordable clean energy. The relationship with the United States is the most important bilateral relationship for Japan, obviously. And the US-Japan cooperation is important not only for the two countries, but also for Asia Pacific as a whole, and of course, globally. In that sense, the role of the US-Japan Council develops and connects diverse leaders, both private and public leaders, to create stronger US-Japan relationship. Is absolutely important, and I appreciate your hard work to advance our relationship, including holding this event. The importance of Japan-US relationship is the same for climate change and energy policy. And Russia's aggression to Ukraine is creating a huge turmoil in energy market, and now we really need to pursue both energy security and response to the climate change, which means we need really holistic approach. Therefore, METI and the Department of Energy of the United States government formed the framework named US-Japan Clean Energy and Energy Security Initiative, which is covering all aspects of energy policy as it is as casted on the screen. The area includes technology marketization, renewables, grid integration, clean hydrogen ammonia, industrial decarbonization, energy efficiency, batteries, CCUS, and nuclear. US-Japan Energy and Climate Change Cooperation is also very important for Asia-Pacific countries, unlike developed countries such as the United States, Japan, and European countries, where the demand for electricity is relatively stable. This region has the rapidly growing energy demand. How to catch up growing electricity demand by maximizing the use of renewables is a very big challenge for them, because they have been heavily utilizing the fossil fuel to fill that gap between the supply and demand of the electricity. Both Japan and the United States are working with them through the framework such as Japan-US Clean Energy Partnership, which is called JUSEP, and the Japan-US Mekong Power Partnership, which is called JAMP. And I also would like to briefly touch on Japan's energy and climate change policy. The Japanese government started the Green Transformation Conference, which is to implement the transformation of the entire economic and social system, which we name Green Transformation. It means shifting the fossil fuel-centered economy, society, and industrial structure since the Industrial Revolution to a clean energy-centered one. It is an entire transformation of the entire economic and social system, and the Council is supposed to provide the report by the end of this year. So please be aware of the report, and we hope we can work together, both United States and Japan, to implement the report. Lastly, I would like to mention about the Tokyo Green Transformation Week. There will be multiple events related to climate change and energy, starting from the 26th September of this year. The events including at the ministry, the events including those of ministerial level, and most of the events will be held in hybrid setting. I hope many of you are able to join the events either online or in person. Thank you very much, and that's my remarks.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Kobayashi, for joining us and for sharing the information on those initiatives. And we do look forward to that report that you mentioned and seeing how that can inform the work that we're doing. So I just want to thank, as we're time to wrap up, thank everybody who's been part of this event. I've learned a lot, and I feel like this event captures so much of what we're trying to do in US-Japan Council's Climate and Sustainability Initiative, which is bringing together so many stakeholders in a forward-looking agenda and sharing success stories. So thank you all very much for being part of this. I also want to thank our sponsors again, and particularly Amazon as our founding strategic partner, and all of you who joined. And we hope to continue to have you be part of the conversation. I also want to give a shout out to the staff who've worked very hard to bring all the complex players together across time zones. And particularly want to thank Mr. Tanabe Yasuo, who's a special advisor, as well as Todd Gild, who serves on our board of directors as a strategy bureau. So just to wrap up, just want to share that our next major climate-related event will be our Fall Sustainability Roundtable on October 27th in Shibuya, Tokyo. It'll be invite only, and we'll gather key members of the community in person to continue this conversation. And also the following day on October 28th, the council will be having its annual conference in Shibuya. This is open to the public and the information is on the screen. We'll be continuing to look at energy security, sustainability in the context of the broader US-Japan relationship, and welcome you all to register and join us. We'll be posting information about other speakers joining us soon. And I know many of you on this call who are joining me as speakers will be there and be part of it. And I can't wait to see you all in October in Shibuya. Thank you all for being part of today's event. And we look forward to continuing the conversation. Thank you.